Hi, welcome to my channel. For my first video, I'll be doing the newbie tag. I love these types of videos. I think they're so interesting to watch, but I thought it would be fun to introduce my channel in a way that felt more personal to me. I hope you enjoy this style. My name is Kai and this is Hot People Read. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? Well, the answer is pretty simple. I just love books. I love reading books, talking about books, watching others talk about books. And I would love to be part of a community where people share the same passion, to be part of a safe space with like-minded people, where we can share and discuss our opinions or things bookish. Why do you love reading? This question was a bit hard for me to answer because reading has always been a part of my life ever since I was a kid. But when I really break it down, reading is such an immersive experience. There's something magical about words transporting you to another world. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? To be honest, I didn't create this channel to be unique or different. I just want to talk about books with people online. And as cliche as it sounds, the most unique thing I can bring is myself. If you like my channel, that's lovely. If you don't, that's also okay. I'd like to mention that all of my videos will be subtitled. Disclaimer, I'm able-bodied and in no way am I trying to speak over a community. While it's great there are more conversations about inclusivity, people with disabilities are rarely included in the conversation, more specifically people who are deaf and hard of hearing. Although YouTube has automated captions for some videos, as someone who uses subtitles for most forms of media, they can be so inaccurate, especially for fantasy-based bookish things where the names and places are made up and completely fictional. If anyone in the deaf community is struggling to read the subtitles, please let me know in the comments or DM me on Instagram. I would also like to incorporate my love of fashion and to show that in my videos. What are you most excited for about this new channel? I guess getting to meet new people and form relationships. I've been a consumer of Booktube for a few years now, and I know that social media can be a harmful place, but it was designed for global social interaction, and that's what I hope to be part of. And I've always wanted a creative outlet where I can go on and on about books unapologetically without harassing my friends and family. What questions would you ask your favorite booktuber? I guess I don't really have one favorite booktuber. There are so many channels that I watch, but I guess if I was limited to one, I would first ask, how do they read so much and so quickly? Especially when it comes to fantasy books, which usually have like 3 books minimum per series with like 500 pages per book. I would also ask how they are able to capture their thoughts in a cohesive way that makes sense without sounding robotic. So what I'm really asking is, how do they get comfortable in front of the camera? This feeds into the next question, which is, what challenges do you think would be the hardest to overcome? Talking to the camera is not something I'm used to. I think it would take a while for me to feel truly comfortable. Hearing my own voice kind of cringes me out, but it is what it is and eventually I'll get over it. I'm so excited to start this channel, but I don't want it to get in the way of my organic love of reading for the sake of following trends or reading X amount of books purely for content, because this is a creative outlet. It's a hobby. There were 2 moments in my life where I stopped reading, and it was due to school. I took English literature in year 12 and year 13. Reading was no longer enjoyable. I read because I had to, not because I wanted to. I needed that grade. I had a goal that I needed to achieve, and I think this is something a lot of people can relate to, and for that reason I won't be putting pressure on myself to have certain types of books on my bookshelf or to have X amount of views and subscribers. I'll just go with the flow and be as consistent as I can be. Where do you read? This is such a fun question and I love hearing people's answers, but for me personally, I like reading in the bath. I know it can sound strange, but it's peak me time and it creates such a cozy environment, especially during colder months. And don't butcher me for saying this, but I kind of like it when some water gets on the pages, just a little bit, not a lot. I'm already exposing myself and you've known me for 5 minutes, but hear me out. when a tiny bit of water gets on a page or two, and when it dries, it gets this crispy texture. I can't explain it, but there's something so comforting about it. Like when it has that crispy sound, I just can't. Apart from the obvious answer, which is my bed, I also love reading on public transport, specifically the train, because that's what I tend to use. I just pop on some relaxing instrumental music. It's such a vibe, but it has gotten me into trouble. The amount of times I've missed a stop or gotten on the wrong train because I was so engrossed in a book is embarrassing, but we move. It's also an easy way to kill time if you have a long journey. In what format do you read books? This question might already exist on someone else's tag, but I literally just thought of it now. So please don't think I'm copying someone without crediting them. I wanted to add this question because there are so many ways to read books, but my preference is and always will be physical books. Nothing compares to holding a book in your hand, turning the pages and wanting to throw it across the room when something shocking happened. But I'll admit, I like and appreciate audiobooks. They're more convenient for when you're doing something like walking, cleaning, or when you just don't want to carry a book in your bag. I've tried ebooks and I'm not really a fan of them, but that's probably because I don't have a Kindle, so I would read on my phone, which isn't very pleasant because it's a smaller screen and distracting. When did you start reading? Earlier in this video, I mentioned that I started when I was a child, but I can't really pinpoint the exact age. But my earliest memory of reading comes from my mom. I just remember seeing all of these children's books in the house. But what's interesting is that I remember writing as a child. I would write these silly stories in my notebook, and as I got older, I would type stories on those super old computers with the super thick CCC back. And I remember how important reading and creating stories were to me. I kind of went on a tangent, but that pretty much sums up when my hobby began. Another question I randomly decided to add to the tag is, where do you get your books? Because of school, I normally got my books from the library, but before I started secondary school, most of my books came from my parents and from other family members as birthday gifts. For the past 2 years, I purchased most of my books from bookstores. Of course, there were books in the university library, but obviously those books were purely educational and I was not interested. Recently, I've gone back to my local library, and when I joined the book club at uni, I of course had access to those books. I would say now I mainly get books from my local library, and sometimes I will purchase a new book if it's not available. I love buying books, but I only want to see the books that I had the most fun reading, and it's so annoying to see a book I really disliked right in front of me. What book series got you into reading? I remember really liking those classic children's books at the time. You can see some examples on the screen. I started off with those typical educational stories with pictures on every page. I don't know if this is specific to the UK, but I absolutely adored The Gruffalo and We're Going on a Bear Hunt. Those books had every 5-year-old British kid in a chokehold. I was fortunate enough to have grown up in an environment where reading was not only encouraged but accessible to me. But what truly drew me in were fantasy books and bedtime stories. I fell in love with these otherworldly lives and mystical beasts. Books about talking animals and strange creatures with magical powers were everything to me. This was also reflected in the types of TV shows and movies I enjoyed, like How to Train Your Dragon, Spiderwick Chronicles, and Narnia. Then came the 2010s, and if you know, you know. YA dystopian novels completely took the world by storm, and I loved every minute of it. You just had to be there. Then of course we had our classic YA contemporary novels full of teenage angst and our treasured John Green. And during my late teens I stopped reading, as I mentioned earlier, but I slowly started to get back into it with the classics. When the You Know What happened in March 2020, I reverted to fantasy. Here are a few of my favourites at the moment. I've mainly read YA fantasy, but I'd love to start adults as well. And of course, this happened. Not my proudest moments, but again, you just had to be there. What kind of books do you like to read? I would say that fantasy books are my favourite type to read, but generally I can appreciate all different genres. I do lean towards fiction, but over the past 2 years, I've dipped my toes into non-fiction. I tend to struggle in this area because I find this genre to be quite lackluster, and I'm happy to say that's not completely true. I resonate with people's life stories such as memoirs. The ones that stood out to me were Educated by Tara Westover, Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, and most recently, I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And for the most part, I don't usually find self-help books to be helpful. By the way, I don't mean to offend anyone who enjoys these genres and types of books. We all have our preferences. But I read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel A. van der Kolk. It's an incredible book that's actually informative and practical. It's quite heavy and touches on very sensitive topics, so read with caution. Honestly, I could make a whole video about non-fiction books that I find interesting. Also, can I just say, this video is taking me forever to edit. As a complete amateur, I didn't expect it to be easy. This video was supposed to go up on the 1st of October, and that is just not happening. It will probably be a few days after that. Here I was thinking I was going to upload twice a week. For now, it's going to be once a week until I find a more time-efficient way to edit, but I think that will just come with experience as I learn. I will be uploading a week later from now. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. I would love to know your responses to these questions, so please leave a comment below. Or don't, it's up to you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.